binge eating. Another thing that was brought up in the post the other day that people mentioned they're struggling with is binge eating. And there's two main considerations I'm going to mention around that today. Firstly, similar to yesterday's sweet cravings, is what else can we do that will make us feel better so we have less of a feeling of need around binge eating, which, again, whatever we might tell ourselves, does make us feel better at that particular point of doing it. So could we instead look at a lifestyle practice, yoga, meditation, journaling? Could we be getting exercise? Could we be drinking more water, less caffeine, less alcohol, getting more sleep, etc.? Again, all a bit boring, I know, but all contribute towards us feeling better and therefore having less of a need for things like binge eating that, again, give us that momentarily benefit. If we try and leave a binge eating hole shaped in our life, then it's not going to happen. And then the other consideration is often, from my experience, binge eating is underpinned by a feeling of restriction around that particular thing. So we often end up binging on something because we've felt that we can't have it. We've been forcing ourselves not to have it. We've been trying to use willpower to make that happen. And then at some point, willpower is a finite resource. It runs out. We end up binging on it. So what we could look to do instead is create a balance in our eating, which still includes those items, but in a way that still allows us to work towards our goals. So the burger, the ice cream, etc. can be part of an approach that still allows us to be in calorie maintenance or deficit, still allows us to get enough vitamins and minerals and nutrients elsewhere, so we go in the direction that we want to go in, but that thing isn't off the table. It's not banned, it's not naughty, it's not something we're going to force ourselves not to have until eventually we give in and binge. However, I know from speaking to some people, particularly Chris Tibbetts, who's our resident emotional eating coach, that in some cases people will have certain foodstuffs that just trigger something deep inside them that they just can't stop on. And maybe actually not having them, or at least not having them accessible the majority of the time, is their biggest win. Chris often talks about how he can't have one chocolate hobnob. He'll immediately demolish the whole packet. And he finds it considerably easier just not to have chocolate hobnobs. Doesn't mean he can never ever have them again, but just not having them in the house is way easier than trying to create an average that includes them for him in that particular case. So with binge eating, a few considerations. What else can we do to make ourselves feel better that doesn't have that overall negative loss? What else? How else could we make it so that we can include that thing and not create that feeling of restriction and the feeling of having to use willpower? Or maybe, in some cases, how can we just, again, make it so it's a lot less accessible, a lot harder to have, and we're a lot less likely to binge on it?